Photoshop CS5. This has been a highly requested tutorial, so it should be a lot of fun, it should be really great. Now, there's a lot of steps to this procedure, so I definitely recommend, taking notes, doing it a few times. It's definitely a more you do it sort of thing. This is something that you're going to do early on in your editing process, kind of after you've taken out any sort of blemishes, but probably before you've done any of the more major edits. It should be done fairly early. So it does help if the model has nice skin to start, makes your life a little bit easier, but if not, this can definitely be used for people with less desirable skin. Luckily I have a model here, Eva, who happens to have really nice skin, so it makes my job today a little bit easier. So what we're basically going to do first is duplicate the layer to start. We definitely want to do that. So I'm going to hit Command J on the keyboard and get a duplicate layer. And I'm going to head up to Filter, choose Blur, and choose Gaussian Blur. But here's the thing, I'm not going to use this blur. There's definitely ways to do skin smoothing with a blur, but it eliminates a lot of texture, and we want to find a way of doing the skin smoothing but maintaining the texture. Now this is a technique that I have stolen from Scott Kelby, but that's okay because he stole it from someone else to begin with. So basically what you want to do when you're in Gaussian Blur is to kind of play around with the radius until things look, fairly smooth. Kind of pretend like you're going to use this to smooth the skin. This looks pretty good around 9-ish, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to click OK, I'm going to click Cancel and get out of here. And what I'm going to do is head up to Filter, this time choose Other, and choose High Pass. And it's in High Pass, this is where I'm going to put in the number that I found with the Gaussian Blur, so I'm going to change this to 9 right here. 9 pixels, and say OK. And it's looking fantastic so far. So the next step is going to be to head back to Filter, this time choose Blur, only this time we're going to go to Surface Blur. And this is where we're going to put in a radius value that's 1/3 of whatever number you just put into the high pass filter. So I put in 9 for my high pass filter, so I'm going to make this a 3, because it's 1/3 of 9. The threshold I'm just going to keep there, so if 15 is great, I'm just going to leave it right there and say OK. And again, it's looking just fabulous. This is something that really looks just awful until the very end, and then it looks amazing. Surface Blur is also incredibly intense for your computer, so it definitely takes longer to process than some of the other filters that we have. But once this is done processing, the next step is going to be to invert the layer. So I have layer 1 selected, which is my high pass filter with the blur on it. I'm going to do Command I for invert, and that inverts the layer. And now the next step is to change the blend mode from normal down to linear light. And then take the opacity and bring that layer down to about 50% to start. You're probably going to wind up bringing this down further from there, but this is a good place to start. So now we can see it's soft, there's some detail, but obviously it's blurry in places we don't want it to be. It's blurry around the eyes and the hair and all the areas that need detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to wind up masking this in. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and click on the layer mask icon at the bottom of the layers palette. There we go. And now, as long as I have my brush selected, which I can get very easily by hitting B on the keyboard, and make sure that I'm painting with white in this case because I have a black layer mask, I'm going to zoom in. I'm just going to start painting this in. There we go. And it does a really great job of smoothing things out, but again, maintaining that detail. And so when you're painting something like this in, it's really important that you don't go over any sort of areas that have edges, areas that have a lot of detail on them. I don't want to touch the eyelashes. I don't want to go over the eyes. When I'm doing the nose, I don't want to go over the lines right at the bottom of the nose or into the nostril or anything like that. So it's very, very important that we don't blur those lines, because then it's just going to look blurry instead of soft. We want the eyes to be nice and sharp, we want the lips to be sharp, and certain areas of the face just to maintain the detail that was there before. And so it's a little tedious, but you go through and you just paint it in to all the areas of the face. What I'm doing down by the down by the edge of the face, by the chin and on the cheeks and everything, is basically going just about to the very edge. I don't want to touch the edge, because then that's going to actually blur the edge of the face, and we definitely don't want that. I'm also making sure that I'm painting with a nice soft brush, so we don't get any sort of jagged lines. Now, one really great thing is, it's starting to look really good, but what if I miss an area? If I miss an area, I'm probably not going to figure it out for quite some time, and then it's pretty tough to go back and just fill it in. So one thing that I definitely like to do, once I've gotten the majority of my painting done, is to press the backslash key on the keyboard. And in CS5, that should turn on the layer mask mode, and in here you can actually see any areas that you've missed, and you can just kind of continue to go through there and get rid of them. It looks just awful at this point with the layer mask turned on, but it really allows you to see if there's any areas that you've missed. I'm going to go up and get in here. And again, you don't want to go over the hair, you don't want to go over the eyebrows, nothing like that. Just keep it to just skin, that's all. And it's looking pretty okay. I'm not going to go nuts right now, just for the sake of the tutorial. I would usually go through here and do the neck as well, and if you're doing the neck and body and things like that, again, just don't touch edges. If I was doing some work down here, I would want to make sure that I leave just a little bit of room, something like that. Maybe even just a little bit less, just so you still have that detail in the chin and where the face ends. I'm actually going to undo that for now. So let's zoom out. Let's hit the backslash key again to get out of the layer mask mode. And now from here, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty smooth. It's probably too smooth for my taste. It looks a little on the fake side. That's where I like to bring this down. And again, this is when having a model with good skin helps, because you only need to apply a real small percentage of this. Let's see what about 20% looks like before and after. Really nice and subtle, very, very subtle, but it looks good. It looks natural. Start to bring it up. Maybe even 30% could look pretty good. I think 30% looks decent on this one. So again, there's a lot of steps to this one, but I recommend just giving it a shot, going for it. It's absolutely a more you do it sort of thing, but it's a really great technique for making sure that you still have a lot of texture in the skin. And there's a certain look to be said for putting this up a little bit higher as well, around 50%. If you're going for something that's a little bit more extreme and a little bit more fantastical, that doesn't necessarily have to be real. Things look really great when they're up this high. Again, you can see all sorts of detail in here. It just looks a little bit unrealistic. So that is skin smoothing.